Good evening, everyone. We are here to celebrate and to welcome everybody to a community forum featuring our very own Dr. Andy Sanko.
Please rise for the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now please remain standing and join me in the moment of silence as we reflect on the veterans we remember on Memorial Day and offer our strength to those in our nation who are grieving. You may be seated.
How about another hand for our tremendous group of kids from Churchville and Goodnow? good evening. Wow, that light is... Andy, when you get up here, maybe the light won't hit you in the eyes like it's hitting me, but it's bright. Can we cut that light a little bit? I'm not that pretty. Well, hello. Good evening. Once again, my name is Ed Salomon. I'm the president of the Council Rock School Board of Directors. I would like, as I said earlier, to welcome you to the community forum featuring Dr. Andrew Sanko. Again, a special thank you to our student performers this evening from Goodnoe and Churchville Elementary Select Band, as well as Liam McKernan, and from Goodnoe, Joshua Melamed from Council Rock North. Before I move into the rest of my remarks, I would also like to take a moment to thank and acknowledge my fellow school board members that are in the audience who've worked together to get to this important moment for our community. And to give a special thank you to Dr. Susan Elliott for stepping up to lead us as acting superintendent for the last few months. We wish her continued success as she moves on to lead Upper Moreland School District. As you know, the superintendent search process began back in February with the assistance of our Bucks County Intermediate Unit led by Dr. Mark Hoffman. The district shared a community survey in early March to identify themes and priorities to inform our search. After 1,600 community members completed the survey, we shared those results and created a job description based on community feedback and advertised the job nationally. After a rigorous applicant review process, the Board of School Directors is excited to announce the selection of Dr. Sanko as the district's next superintendent of schools. For those who know Dr. Sanko, it's quite obvious when you step to this podium with the amount of lifesavers on the shelf below me, he has to be following me. As we know, and if you don't know, Dr. Sanko has been an integral part of Council Rock for more than 30 years. From serving as both a classroom teacher and a building principal across the district to a senior district administrator, Dr. Sanko knows our students, the staff, and the community members because he's been working together with them every day for decades. This board couldn't be prouder of Dr. Sanko's selection and believes that Dr. Sanko's experience, leadership, and students first always approach will help the Council Rock community move forward together to meet the challenges ahead and build on the strength of our district's educational excellence. We have already received an overwhelmingly positive feedback from our stakeholders across the district, and we look forward in supporting Dr. Sanko and this Council Rock team to help them prioritize our Students First Always initiative. For those who know Dr. Sanko, and I can speak personally, I met Dr. Sanko in 2012 when I moved to Council Rock. My oldest was entering 5th grade at Holland Elementary School, and if any transition as a parent, you know that it's going to be interesting. Dr. Sanko was the first one to greet us, brought us into his office and spoke to us. The team at Holland welcomed my family and continues to welcome my family to this day. The leadership that Dr. Sanko showed immediately to my family was something that I frankly wasn't too sure of in terms of coming from a school in Philadelphia area to this area, and I was just amazed how quick he got my child into the Council Rock mentality and the 4 pillars that Holland still talks about to this day. I've watched his career as he's watched mine. Within 2 years of moving into Holland, I became the vice president of the PTO, and then right before Dr. Sanko left, I became president. And we had a conversation in his office. He said, what do you think about school board? And I said, the PTO's good. I'm happy. I said, what do you think about superintendent? And at the time, Mr. Klein was leaving, and when we were going to be searching for a superintendent here, and his eyes lit up, and he said, I'd like to do that someday. Fast forward to the process of interviewing our applicants for this position, I took notes, and I can tell you, the man sat down. His first question, he had the time to himself. He said,
and his first answer was, "I want the job." He mentioned kids 7 times in the first answer. Kids. Students first, always. The man's about kids. The man's about teams. He's about building and collaborating. He's about making the tough decision. I'm sincerely thankful and happy to have Dr. Sanko as our next superintendent. On behalf of the board, I want to thank Dr. Sanko and everyone for joining us this evening. And before I turn this over to Dr. Halfman, I would like to thank the Bucks County IU for helping us conduct this search and getting us to this evening. Without you guys, we would not be here. So my sincere thank you to you and from the team of the school directors. Dr. Hoffman, the show's yours, sir.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Hoffman, and I am not going to sing the national anthem. I could not compete with those amazing students. Could we give just one more recognition and appreciation for the student performers that were with us? Before I make my remarks, I'd like to introduce our student speaker for this evening because, as we've mentioned a few times, and as is prominently displayed in front of us and on your program, Students First Always, we started our evening with students performing in the foyer, the hallway. Also, we started our formal program with students performing and singing. We're going to continue with students. I'd like to introduce Josh Melamed, actually a junior here at Council Rock North High School, for some student remarks. Josh.
Hi, everyone.
Let me tell you a little bit about me. I am 8 years old, I love to play soccer, and I'm learning how to play the violin. I'm in 3rd grade, and Mrs. Munson is my teacher. My favorite lunch is breakfast for lunch, and I like going to art. I am Holland Elementary. My school got a lot of new things when it got rebuilt, and there's
Okay, so now I'm a junior at Council Rock, class of 2023, and many things have changed since my speech in elementary school. Like now you guys can actually see me over the podium and understand what I'm saying. My journey through Council Rock took my family to a new home, a new neighborhood, and into a different part of the community. I moved from Holland Elementary to Newtown Middle School. This forced me to make many new friends while also juggling the task of keeping in touch with my old ones. I even had to give up breakfast for lunch, which was one of my favorite lunches in elementary school. But it was all okay, and I think I turned out pretty good because I am Council Rock. I represent adversity. I'm a child who faced difficult times that cannot be measured in a test or on a report card. I was lucky enough to have my Council Rock community to lean on during these hard times, Mr. Sanko being one of those people. They put me first at a time when I needed it most and made sure that my brother Marcus and I knew that things were going to be okay. Even my mom was shown compassion and caring. I couldn't be more thankful for everything the people around me did for me, and I'm proud to say again that I am Council Rock. I represent the students, all 10,549 of us who come through the doors each day with backpacks and books, lunches, and laughter. But we each carry some unseen things too, problems, joys, tears, and struggles. We are all different, but we are all important. I represent the care shown by the teachers, the staff, the custodians, the bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and all the school board members. All of those who work so hard to take care of the students each and every day. Sure, it's their job, but I know that we students mean more to them than just simply work. Council Rock cares for its students and shapes all of us. We know how important we are to this district and trust them to take care of us. Council Rock puts us first, always. I represent the community, the wider world that embraces us and makes sure that we, every single one of us, has what we need to be successful day in and day out. And most importantly, I represent the future. When I graduate from North, I will take with me the love and care shown to me and my family, to me and my classmates, and to every student at Council Rock. My future, our futures, are boundless, and I believe that I am ready because of who I am and what I represent here. Because you see, I am Council Rock. Thank you.
Is that amazing or what? One more round of applause for Josh, please. You know, it's interesting to stand up here. Josh got me thinking about some things. Not only did he get me thinking about what a great idea it is to have breakfast for lunch, but he got me thinking about just this idea, students first always, and then him saying, I am Council Rock. You look around this room and I think each person could say that, and collectively, we are Council Rock. You are all Council Rock. And I'm a proud Council Rock graduate myself. I graduated from this building in 1997, and I'm thinking back to my days at Rolling Hills Elementary School, and I do, Josh, think there was breakfast for lunch there as well. So thank you for that trip down memory lane. So it is good to be home in Council Rock, and it is an honor to have supported the Council Rock Board of School Directors and the Council Rock community with this search process. Again, my name is Mark Hoffman, and I'm the very proud Executive Director of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. What is the Intermediate Unit, you might ask? We are one of several hundred educational service agencies that support the schools of the United States of America. In Pennsylvania, in our Commonwealth, there are 29 intermediate units. So we are the intermediary, if you will, amongst the schools themselves, providing economies of scale and services, as well as an intermediary or liaison with our state and federal agencies, helping to make sense of the world of education and helping to provide economies of scale, as I mentioned, and then also high quality, cost-effective services. One of the things that I enjoy most about my role as Executive Director of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit is the ability to support school districts with important things like identifying a new superintendent. School boards are tasked with very important roles and responsibilities according to the state code. They pass a budget, of course, they levy taxes, of course, they adopt a curriculum, and of course they support the school district. But perhaps the most important thing that they do, and perhaps the legacies that they leave, perhaps the thing that those are built around the most, is the identification, selection, evaluation, and support of essentially the chief teacher, right? The chief academic officer, the chief executive officer, which in school lingo you know as the superintendent. Finding a superintendent is paramount to the success, and supporting a superintendent is paramount to maintaining the success of a school district. And it's the superintendent that not only serves as the cheerleader, but it's really that North Star for the school district. And Dr. Sanko, I know you have a shining North Star. So on behalf of the Intermediate Unit team, several of whom are here today with us, we thank the Council Rock Board of School Directors. We thank the community for the amazing opportunity to provide the support that we were able to provide. And it's been an honor, and we thank all of you for this wonderful event that you've put on tonight and allowing us to be a part of the search from the beginning, and also to be here to celebrate. Really, we call this a community forum. I feel like this is more of a community celebration, celebrating Dr. Sanko. And I know that he's humble, and he'll say we're celebrating Council Rock, but every team needs a leader, and I know that this community is thankful, Dr. Sanko, that you're the new leader. So one more round of applause for Dr. Sanko in advance. I'm going to just give you a sense of what tonight looks like. It's in your program, of course, but Dr. Sanko is going to take the stage next. He's going to provide you with some opening remarks, and then he and I are going to take the stage, center stage there, and I'm going to ask him some questions. I'll tell you a little bit more about the questions when we get to that segment. Following the questions and answer, Dr. Sanko will have the opportunity for one more chance to address the community, and then Mr. Solomon, as board president, will close our event. So it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you for the very first time in public in this context, your next superintendent, Dr. Andrew J. Sanko. Andy.
Thank you. I moved over for you. Students first, always. We're going to start there. We're going to end there. And we're going to journey a little bit and talk about that all night tonight. So I want to start by thanking the Board of School Directors for giving me the opportunity to be here, allowing me to participate in the selection process and moving me forward. I'd like to thank Dr. Mark Hoffman and the team at the IU, Bucks County Intermediate Unit, for facilitating this whole process. It's important for me to thank the kids that we heard perform tonight, Liam and our band members from Churchville and Goodnoe. It's important to thank all the students who are handing out flyers, the folks who put this whole night together, some very close friends and amazing people and teachers put this together. It's important for me to thank my mom and dad who are here, Andy and Irene, my sister Lisa also is here. I'd like to thank, of course, my wife Sue is here with two of our three kids, Mackenzie, who is an 11th grader in a neighboring district, Neshaminy, and AJ, who just graduated college a year ago, May, and of course we're missing our middle guy, Sean, who is studying at Johns Hopkins University in Bologna, Italy, but he will be home on the 30th, so I'm excited about that. I also want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Chris and Rita Cresswell. They are here. Chris hired me in 1989, Chris, to be a fourth grade teacher at the brand new Hillcrest Elementary School. I know that everyone is busy, and I appreciate you being here a lot. Again, the students I have to thank the most. You heard Josh mention 10,549 students. That's why we're here. Students first, always. Without those kids, we wouldn't be here tonight. Without those kids, we wouldn't fill 10 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools in our STAR building. I'm grateful for those students. I'm grateful for all of you to be here. I'm honored and privileged to be able to share with you tonight some of my vision and my leadership and what it's going to look like for our students in our community in Council Rock. This is a very special place to me. It's a very special place to many people. You heard Josh speak tonight, and if you're a parent of kids in this community, I can say this to you with confidence. No one takes better care of their kids than Council Rock. I'm going to say that again because it is important for you to hear. Nobody takes better care of their kids than Council Rock. I happen to know other districts, and they're wonderful districts, but nobody does it better than the teachers, the support staff, the parents, and the kids right here within our 72 square miles that we call Council Rock. Tonight, we begin a journey together, a journey I started 33 years ago with Mr. Cresswell. I was invited to a final round of interviews at the central office building, which was Twining Ford Road. It once was the Nike Air Base. And I'll give you a sense of the time. I had to return the phone call to the then Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Dave Blatt, from a payphone outside the Thrifty Swifty in Lock Haven to accept the interview. And my parents, being who they are, said, "Whoa, you're not driving 4 hours by yourself for an interview." And they told me to get in the car. So I piled into a 1988 F-150 blue pickup truck and drove to Council Rock. Great ride, but I was horrified. What would Mr. Blatt think seeing my parents there? And I slithered into the building, and I thought it was going to be okay because Mr. Blatt didn't see my parents. And when I came out, he walked me out, and there were my parents. And he couldn't have been more complimentary, more kind, and more grateful that my parents didn't allow a 22-year-old to drive all that way to come to an interview on a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. At that time, Council Rock was growing and prospering, and we were building 2 elementary schools, Hillcrest Elementary, Richboro Elementary. And Richboro Elementary opened on time. Hillcrest, we didn't really open on time, and Mr. Cresswell had to take care of kids and teachers and folks at Holland Junior High at that point. That's where 6th grade was. And K through 3, they were located at Holland Elementary School that used to have modular classrooms. And I was part of the group in 4th and 5th grade that we were what we called the boardwalk at Rolling Hills Elementary. And I remember vividly having that blue Ford pickup truck day after day, taking truckload after truckload of teachers' materials to Hillcrest. And at that time, we opened around October 25th. And the auditorium, or the all-purpose room, was filled with boxes, wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling. Mr. Cresswell had a desk in the center of the stage. And over the course of a weekend, parents, teachers, support staff, other administrators, kids opened every box. They put that school together. Parents showed up with wheelbarrows, rakes, shovels, planted flowers, put mulch down, and on Monday, we opened the building. We were born. And at that moment, I knew that this wasn't a job. It wasn't a career. It was about the immeasurable compassion, dedication to education, and care for one another that separates Council Rock from everywhere else. And so that's what I want to bring to you and to our community. Students first, always. That has to be our center point. That has to be our non-negotiable. No sporting event, no bus route, no new building, no new roof can supersede what we have to do. Our single mission is to take care of kids. It always has to be. Students first, always. If you're the superintendent, the custodian, the contractor, it has to be students first, always. Without a vision on students first, always, we've lost our way. And with that, I want to again thank you for being here. I know it's a busy time of year, and I appreciate you giving your time. Again, I would like to thank the Board of School Directors for this opportunity, and Dr. Mark Hoffman and team, and I will pass it back to Dr. Hoffman. Once again, students first, always.
We're now at the part of the event where there are several questions that I'm going to ask Dr. Sanko. The questions were acquired through a survey of the community, and they help give a sense of the things that are on your mind as a community, what you'd like to know more about from Dr. Sanko in his new role as superintendent. Obviously, 33 years, everybody knows who you are. They have a great sense of your core academic values and your North Star, but the questions that we have tonight were generated from those. Now, of course, we don't have enough time for every question that was submitted. We had well over 40 questions submitted. So my job and my task was to aggregate them and identify some themes. So we have about 14 questions that Andy and I are going to work through right now. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Have you ever had a public job interview before, right? There we go.
Especially not on a high stool, no.
Exactly. All right, well, if this holds me by the end of the night, we'll have succeeded. How about that? So as I said, just a little context for the survey itself and where the questions came from. Just a couple of notes. I want to make sure that you know that this survey was advertised widely in the community from May 20th through the 24th. It was shared through Blast, the website, Facebook, and during that time, just under 30 individuals submitted just north of 40 questions. And as I said, what we've got here tonight are 14 questions that get to those themes. And so that's what we're really looking for tonight. Dr. Sanko is going to get a copy of every question that was submitted that has the name, the phone number, the address, the email of all the folks that submitted, so you could properly respond, because some of the questions that we got were very specific, and that, of course, wouldn't be appropriate for tonight. So, the first question, I think, is really perfectly suited. I don't think we could have planned it better. Someone in the community noticed that Students First Always is really attached to this announcement and to you. You've mentioned it a few times. I think we've seen it in action here. Do you want to just give a sense of what those words mean to you?
Those words mean non-negotiable. Those words mean that our core mission has to be about kids. Those words mean that every conversation has to begin with, how does this provide to be something positive for students. And those words have to, at the back end of the conversation, bookend it by asking, what's the evidence? How do we know that it was positive for kids? When I think of Students First Always, I think about stories like Josh shared with us. I think of stories of the parents showing up with wheelbarrows and rakes at Hillcrest Elementary School. And I could sit here all night and tell you stories about that. There is so much care and compassion in this community and focus on students, and it means to me that our actions, as the adults, our actions have to follow those words. Students first, always.
Love it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm sure those are 3 words that we're going to hear regularly, right? Under your tenure.
I'm hoping, I'm not hoping, we will hear them regularly. My desire is to make sure our kids know that, to make sure our families know that, because I do know for certain that our staff and teachers put students first. I've lived it, I've seen it, I witness it, but it's important for me that our students, each and every one of them, K to 12 and in some cases K to 21, that they know it.
I think everybody appreciated the story that you told about coming here in the back of the pickup truck.
Right.
Mr. Black coming out and being complimentary. And I think we've heard some stories tonight as well about the impact that you've had on others as a teacher and as an administrator. There's a question that asks for you to tell a story about a teacher that inspired or motivated you. Do you have something for us?
Again, I could sit here and all night and tell you about teachers that have inspired me, whether it's informal teachers with regard to life lessons or teachers who are actually classroom teachers of mine, or the teachers I have the good fortune of working with every day. You know, some stories that come to mind quickly. During a time of need, I recall a teacher knowing that a family was in need financially. The teacher took it upon themselves to make sure every child in that house had Christmas gifts to open, a hot meal to eat on Christmas Day, and showed up with a Christmas tree with lights on it. So, is that part of teaching? I don't know the answer to that, but I certainly think it's part of teaching. What our community has done over the last couple weeks with some things we have seen happen, particularly at Newtown Middle School and Sulphine-Stone Elementary. Hard, very. Inspirational, absolutely. Our teachers have wrapped themselves, and our support staff and administrators have wrapped themselves around this community. I have seen Council Rock at our highest peak and our lowest valleys. And one thing I know for certain is that our teachers wrap themselves around our community. Probably the most inspiring thing, and I had the good fortune as a principal at the elementary level and secondary level, and now at every level, I have the good fortune to be able to put my hand on a classroom doorknob every single day. And I know that when I open the door, when I walk into that classroom, whether it's first grade or third grade or ninth grade, kids will be doing great things. And I am most inspired by the great product, the great teachers that we have in Council Rock. Council Rock teachers and staff inspire me every day.
Dr. Sanko, there were several questions that were submitted from various parents and community stakeholders about special education. That's a huge topic. The questions ranged from your philosophy of inclusive practices, universal design, expanding programs at the Sloan School. Others asked about your vision for special education programming, given the pending retirement of the district's long-tenured Director of Special Education, Dr. Lambert. Another asked about the impact special education might have on class sizes in the school district. So those are specific questions, and I know that as you progress through your superintendency, your tenure, you're going to address those things. For the purposes of tonight, hearing those kinds of questions, can you walk us through what special education services might look like under your tenure as superintendent?
Yeah, I think a good starting point is to congratulate and thank Dr. Chuck Lambert, he actually is celebrating tonight, and he couldn't be here, and I couldn't be with him. He's celebrating tonight his 40 years in public education, most of which were right here in Council Rock. So he will be retiring soon.
We should clap for him. He might hear us.
We should clap for Dr. Lambert.
Yeah.
What my view and what my vision of special ed in this tenure will be, and what you can expect, is that we carry on the wide and deep channel for our special ed kids that Dr. Lambert has established over his long time here. You know, we have mandates from the state. PDE says, you know, thou shall not. We have created in Council Rock a community and a culture and a climate of acceptance. Our kids, our families, our communities inside of our buildings and outside of our buildings have a level of acceptance and expectation that they're part of everything that we do. So whether you're a special education student in second grade or you're a 21-year-old Achieve student, we have a place for you. You're welcome, and you're part of us in Council Rock. It's important for us to use words like we, us, and our, and they're our kids. And so what you can expect is continued work with our special ed folks, continued success stories from our special education students, and a culture and climate of continued acceptance and placement right inside of our walls of Council Rock, and I would dare to say outside of our walls, because we have right here in Council Rock, outside of the district walls, we have great things going on for our kids, like athletes helping athletes, like Special Olympics, and some of our Special Olympians were rewarded and celebrated the other night at a board meeting. So what we will be looking forward to doing with regard to your question is continuing the good work of our teams, our parents, our kids, and that of Dr. Lambert as he retires.
Well said. Do you want to give a plug for tomorrow morning?
I do. I would love to give a plug for tomorrow morning. So one of our buildings is called the Star Center, and tomorrow morning, anybody that is watching this or not able to make it tonight, our students at the Star Center, kids from the Achieve and the Sloan, and maybe some from our Twilight program, will be hosting a meet and greet tomorrow morning from 8:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. I'll be there if anybody has any questions. Our students promise that they'll make the coffee strong and the donut sweet.
Sounds great.
All right.
So you talked about, in your last answer, inclusiveness, one community. There were a number of questions, that was a nice segue, because there were a number of questions that centered on the topic of children being bullied in Council Rock schools. And those are tough questions, right? And those seem counter to everything that you stand for. And so I know that parents want to know what your thoughts are on bullying, particularly consequences. There were questions about the consequences. What happens when a child is bullying others? Others asked about what protocols might look like, or what programs you might adopt as a school district to enforce or enrich this inclusive culture that you have. So can you talk about your experience with bullying? I mean, obviously as a long tenured teacher and administrator, this isn't a new topic, sadly. And can you talk about what the vision for the district will be specific to bullying to help those parents understand your stance?
So I think that you're correct. The questions that came in, we do have policies in place for bullying, cyberbullying, and they're written and they're meant to protect people, both the victim and the bully. We have rules in place, but I think if we start at the rule, we lose our opportunity to teach kids. Our kids today do not have a time to be off. It used to be, before social media, if somebody called you a name on the bus, you would go home and you wouldn't have to do anything or face that person until the next day when you got on the bus. Now our kids are constantly on with the social media. And as it relates to bullying, we have things in place in our schools with the PBIS system at all 10 of our elementary schools. It has now grown into our 2 middle schools. At our elementary schools, we have a responsive classroom, and the secondary schools, restorative practices, and all those are great programs. But I think back to my time at Holland Elementary as a new principal, I heard the parents were calling me up saying, my kid's being bullied, my son's being bullied, my daughter's being bullied. And I thought, do we really have a bullying problem, or are we not identifying this properly? And a team at Holland Elementary kind of coalesced, and we got together and we looked at and reviewed the Olveus program. And it was research-based, and we wrote a grant, and next thing you know, we brought in a man who was a disciple of Olveus by the name of Stan Davis, who educated our teachers, our staff, our parents, and most particularly our students, so that we had a starting point to define what bullying is. And I would say that we will continue with those programs that I just mentioned, responsive classroom, restorative practice, and those type of things. But we do have to get a baseline and an understanding. And the best way we can do that is with everybody working together, because once again, we need to do this as a team, because many of these things that are spilling into the classroom are happening on social media, and it's happening outside the school day, and we're trying to put the pieces together. So what I would suggest is that we continue to talk about this. We look at this district-wide, similarly to what I described that we did as a team at Holland Elementary. And you heard even Mr. Solomon talk about the 4 pillars, and that was something that was born out of the initiation of the work with the Olveus program.
So in your answer, you mentioned some of the troubles that we have with social media, some of the cons that come with it. Yeah. But there are also some benefits to social media in terms of increasing the ability to communicate with the stakeholders of the school district. So there were lots of parents that were curious what communication might look like in terms of communicating with parents, with the community, with students, while you're the superintendent. Can you talk about what strategies you're going to leverage to keep people informed and what they can expect from you as the leader of the district?
So when I think about communication, I think 3 things. The first is the communication that we're accustomed to, the weekly letters, the Blackboard email blast, the website. Like, they're things that we're accustomed to. If there's a snow day, you're going to get an email and a phone call. Like, I think of that kind of communication. So our community can expect those kind of things to continue. The second thing I think about in terms of communication is listening. I think as superintendent, as teacher, as principal, as support staff, we have to listen, and hear what our community is saying. We have to seek to understand. You know, the bullying question was a great example of that. We have to seek to understand what the issue is so we can help resolve it to the best of our ability. And so the third thing I would say to you when I think about communication is that of being present, being visible, available, accessible. And our community can expect to see me. They already do see me at places on a regular basis. There aren't too many days that go by that I don't have an opportunity to be in a classroom, to interact with teachers, to interact with kids. So moving forward, I would expect that we continue with our written communication like we're accustomed to. I would say to you that we want to rethink listening to and seeking to understand. And then the third thing is the availability and the accessibility. I feel very strongly that we have to fold our community, our parents, back into the schools. We've been interrupted, to no one's fault, but we've been interrupted, and we have to open the doors and invite people in to talk, to understand, to seek the facts. And so when you get communication coming out of the office of the superintendent, it will be clear, it will be factual, it will be student-centered. And one of the ways that I intend on making that happen in terms of folding the community into the schools is that I would like to offer a forum about once a month on a weekend or an evening and pick a topic so that our community can come in, ask questions, get facts, and refrain from posting things on social media. So they would have the facts and know exactly where we are. I'm looking forward to working together with the community and the staff.
You're going to get an applause for that. So let's change the focus for the next few questions to academic type programming questions. So parents are used to perhaps now hearing, especially middle and high school career pathways, college and career readiness. I know it starts much earlier. So those are concepts that are universal now in the field of education. And you think about students first always. Once they leave Council Rock, they have lots of options. They can study, they can go into the armed forces, they can start a career, they can do all three. Career and technical education is one of those pathways, and that starts, of course, in high school here at the Middle Bucks Institute of Technology. There were a couple of questions that were curious what the district's relationship is going to look like with MBIT under your leadership.
Well, I think in fairness to Mrs. Strauss, we should congratulate her as well. She also is retiring from MBIT this year.
That's right.
I'm not sure if her retirement party's tonight or not, but we have had a wonderful working relationship and partnership with MBIT. Both of our high schools have administrators that work directly with MBIT, and we have had a trusting, strong relationship with MBIT. They do a wonderful job allowing our students to go into the building and to shadow. And if anybody here has not been to MBIT, you need to check it out. It's a pretty cool place. And if you didn't know, MBIT serves 4 Bucks County districts. We're one of 4 districts that it serves. But there is a dynamic shadowing program that the MBIT offers. There are also assemblies so we can introduce our students to the programs at MBIT. MBIT continues to expand. And for many years, we talked about how do we get more kids involved and interested in MBIT. And right now, it's exciting, but there's a problem that needs to be solved. Right now, we have more kids showing interest in programs at the Middle Bucks Institute of Technology for next year than spaces available.
Right.
And so it's a really good problem to solve. And I know Mrs. Strauss has a group of people put together, including some of our board members and our administrators, to try to problem solve, because we want to provide that pathway, that opportunity for our students who may have an interest in that. I guess the best way I could describe MBIT is I had a student in one of the schools here in Council Rock, and that student just wasn't finding their way. And it was a couple months ago that I ran into that student who ended up telling me about MBIT. There's an apprenticeship already in place for that student, and he already has a job offer. So that's I think, is the best way to describe our relationship with MBIT.
So we're at the end of the school experience when we talk about college and career readiness at a place like MBIT. Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum and talk about kindergarten. There were a couple of questions that wanted to know what your thinking is as it relates to full day K. People are interested. Is Council Rock going to consider that under your leadership, and what would that even look like?
That's a great question, and we have studied that question multiple times during my time in Council Rock. I think Council Rock at this point in time across Bucks County, we're one of 2 or 3 outliers across the county who do not offer full day K. Whoever submitted that question, I think it's
several people.
Those several people, it's a fair and a good question. I know when we have studied it before, the 2 topics that came up, one was space, where we put the K program, and the second I know is that we would have to hire more teachers, 16 or 18 teachers. So I think, given that we're an outlier, given that we're seeing this happening all around us, I think under this administration we need to go back, and it'll be the 3rd or 4th time that I've some way been part of looking into full day K. I think we need to at least investigate it. You know, we have some variables that have changed. When we last studied this, Richboro Middle School was Richboro Middle School. Now we're using it as a swing building. The last time we studied this, we had more kids enrolled in the district, so I think it bears our time and energy to look at it again.
Another topic that's been studied, particularly in the last 5 years or so by many districts in Bucks County and across the Commonwealth, and then of course across the country, is later school start times, particularly for older students, adolescents and teenagers. And several people posed questions about your philosophy of a later school start time, in particular for students that attend the high school.
So again, we started work on that several years ago before we were interrupted. We went so far as to bring an expert in to talk to us about later school start times. We started modeling out what transportation might look like, because with later school start times, transportation has to change a bit depending upon when and what grade levels you're going to start. And again, much like the kindergarten question, we should be looking at that. And when we looked at it before, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
we were looking at it through a county-wide lens. And I
That's right.
think that because at the back end of that, when you have a later start time, it could impact all of your extracurricular activities, and being in the county would have to kind of jump on board and join in on that. My philosophy is that we would defer to the research and what we learn right here underneath our own roof in Council Rock. But I think perhaps the best way, similar to the MVIT example I gave, the best way I could describe what I think about later school start times is through some students. Last year I had an opportunity to sit in an 11th or 12th grade English class in this building, and the students were to write persuasive papers, a 3-minute paper, a 4-minute paper. And I don't remember how many students were in there, but I had an opportunity to hear these 11th or 12th graders trying to persuade us to do things, or trying to persuade the audience. And the vast majority of those students wrote about later school start times. So we know where the kids are on
I
it
think
for
they're
sure.
telling us something.
Yeah, we know where the kids are on it for sure.
So speaking of students, there were a couple of questions that were curious about your philosophy of student wellness. What does that look like?
When I think about wellness, I think about 2 words: available and trust. And if kids trust us and kids trust their teacher, they're going to feel safe. And I would say that parlays into the adults that work with kids. When I think about the word available, students have to be available to learn. You heard Josh say a few minutes ago that kids are coming with different sets of circumstances every day. So kids have to be available to absorb and take in the robust learning experiences and opportunities we present. They have to be available academically, they have to be available physically, they have to be available, and they have to trust. They have to, if they forgot their lunch, they have to have enough confidence to raise their hand and enough trust with the teacher to say, I forgot my lunch, or I need a Band-Aid. The way I look at wellness is that we need to be able to make sure that we know each of those 10,459 students. One of the things I would say that we have done that has helped us is, not so long ago, Council Rock didn't have guidance counselors in all the elementary schools. And I credit our school board and Dr. Lambert for having that vision to get counselors in all of our elementary schools. At the high school level, right now, we're studying advisory periods, so that would look like 4, 5, 6 students would be assigned to an adult in the building that would follow them through their entire career, 9th through 12th grade. Not to teach them math and not to teach them English, but in order to have somebody to talk to, somebody to feel safe with, somebody to trust, and somebody to go to. So when I think about wellness, I think about our kids have to feel safe, they have to feel trust, and they have to be available to us. If they're coming with baggage, we need to be able to know the kids, to know that, to meet them where they are and help them with what they need help with.
When we had our moment of silence, when we started tonight, I thought about the community in Texas, right? I felt like that attack was an attack on all schools, like all school attacks are. And these questions, the question period actually closed before the attack in Texas on that elementary school. There were questions, though, related to safety. You mentioned safety in your last answer. People need to feel safe. When we went to school to be teachers, one of the things that we learned about was that Maslow's hierarchy right at the bottom. You need to feel safe before you can feel comfortable to learn.
Right.
So you're currently responsible for safety, and I know you have a close relationship, of course, with the administrators, with the police departments, and I know that that foundation is strong. What's safety going to look like in Council Rock while you're the superintendent?
So again, I think safety takes on several different meanings. Does the student feel safe, as I mentioned a moment ago? But safety has to look like systems in place, which we have. We have regular monthly meetings with, and I have the good fortune to be able to be part of and lead those meetings. We have monthly meetings with our law enforcement, with our police departments in our area. The 4 police chiefs meet with us, first responders meet with us, and we have something called a threat assessment meeting. We have open lines of communication with all of our first responders, everything from emergency plans that we submit and work with the county on to the police chiefs have my cell phone number. We go through a rigorous series of evaluations of our facilities and our systems, some of which that, it's that we pass on to the community. We work with the IU regularly. So safety, to me, we look at internal and external possible threats and safety. And so what it looks like under me is that we continue to have that strong working relationship with our local police departments. We continue those meetings. We continue to listen to the experts who are our first responders. And when they talk to us about access points or where you line your students up for a fire drill, we do it, and we do it then in the moment and fix it. And it looks like continued collaboration with those around us who are the experts. And with that, that also means updating as we need our safety and security features.
Thanks for that. A couple of parents asked about technology. So Council Rock's made a significant investment in technology. Technology shined through during the pandemic, not without its own hiccups, of course. What does instructional technology, what's your vision for instructional technology? What can a parent expect in terms of the district's vision for integrating technology in the classroom? And what can teachers expect in terms of the role that technology will play in teaching and learning?
Well, I think the first thing is there's no substitute for good teaching and learning. A Chromebook does not replace good teaching and learning. So when I think about instructional technology, I think about a support, a resource, a learning management system, a Chromebook, a device, a program. And so instructional technology has its place. The other thing I think about with technology, I think about the word agility. Technology we're using today may very well be obsolete tomorrow. And so we have to remain agile, both on the technology end of it with safety and security, cyber safety and security, but we have to remain agile for our kids because the technology continually changes. So what parents and our teachers and community can expect is that we will continue to support the best things that we can as it relates to instructional technology, but they should also know that my philosophy is nothing can replace authentic, good teaching and learning. Nothing replaces the face-to-face, eye-to-eye, emotion-to-emotion, dialogue, problem-solving, critical thinking. One of the things when I think about instructional technology, where I think we may be able to help our parent community a little bit more, because there's a lot of moving parts with technology and instructional technology. But for our parents, our parents at the elementary level are using a Google platform. Our parents, their kids at the secondary level are using Canvas. And one of the things I've thought about is if there is an interest, we would offer a workshop or an opportunity, or at one of these forums, an opportunity for parents to learn about those forums. I mean, let's face it, most things are now online. We have systems in place for that, but in fairness to our parents and our
in our community. We should offer that, and we have our teachers who are experts with it who can help.
Dr. Sanko, there were a couple of questions that used words like diversity, inclusion, equity. Questions were things like what the district might do to recruit a more diverse workforce. Again, we'll leave the definition of diverse perhaps up to the question asker and perhaps to you and how you interpret it. Others asked about trainings that staff might get on things like bias. Others asked about making sure that the environment's welcoming for all. You touched on some of that when you talked about the bullying question, but do any of those topics strike you as something that you'd like to address as it relates to this idea of being a welcoming community for everyone?
I think it's important to treat people like you want to be treated. Manners matter. Kindness matters. This is our house. And so when people enter our most precious, prized possessions, these kids, parents are giving us their most prized possessions every day and entrusting us with that. We need to treat each other with kindness, with respect, with dignity. And when I think about words like I've heard you say there, right now we know that there's turbulence across our world. Right now we know that there's chaos and we can't control our world. But we can control our 72 square miles to some degree that we call Council Rock. And we could do that by setting the example for our kids as the adults. When I think and hear words like that, a lot of those words tend to be lightning rod-like. And the important thing to me, it's not those words. The important thing to me is students first always. How do we know the student? How do we know the family? How do we help? And how do we make them feel valued, heard, respected, appreciated? And we can do it. I talked about what we've done with our special ed population, right? We can do it. It's here. It's going to require all of us, our parents, our community partners, our teachers, our support staff. Everybody wants the same thing. And we are right now in a time where we need to heal. We're in a time where we need to move toward collaboration and away from confrontation, and a time where we need to keep the students at the center. Students first, always.
Last question. Doing great. Isn't he doing great? Last question. Can you leave us inspired, building on what you just said, as it relates to bringing this community back, into the words of many question askers, into one Council Rock? Several of the questions actually related exactly to what you just said. These lightning rod words, they used words in the questions that we're not going to dissect here, but they used words like critical race theory, book banning, censorship, First Amendment rights, political agendas, overreach. These are words that were in questions submitted. And so, again, this isn't the forum to talk about those things, but it gives you a sense of what's on people's minds, and I think you captured it in terms of this idea of lightning rod words and keeping it back focused on the students. So those same folks said, how do we get back to one Council Rock where we're focused on kids?
We get back to one Council Rock by using words like we, us, and ours, rather than I, me, my. We get back to one Council Rock by having our actions follow those words, but we get back by believing. I believe in this Council Rock community. I believe in this Council Rock school board. I believe in the Council Rock teachers, support staff, and administrators. I believe in the Council Rock parents. I believe, I know it's here. This is our house. And how do we get back to one community? How do we create unity? We put people in front of each other so that we can each understand a point of view, a perspective, so we could seek to understand rather than leaping at a partial truth that we think we know the answer to. We need to talk more and type less. Less text, less emails, less Facebook posts. We need to talk.
You're getting an applause.
We need to talk, and we need to listen. We want everybody to have a voice. Having a voice doesn't mean you're going to get exactly what you want every time, but we need to listen. And I said to the Board of School Directors during this process that one of the very first things I would do would be to go on a listening tour and spend time with each board member and stakeholder groups, our student leaders, administrators, teachers in buildings, community members, and I'm glad to say that I've already started that, and I'm excited about it. Because as long, we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. But we could disagree about anything so long as at the center of every discussion, every conference, every debate, if we are focused on students and that is our North Star, then we're going to do just fine by way of our kids in Council Rock. That's how we bring back community, by making this about our kids and we as one Council Rock.
You said that you believe in the students, the staff, the board, the community. I think the community believes in you. Can we congratulate Dr. Andy Sanko?
Thank you.
As Dr. Sanko catches his breath, I just want to take a moment to, again, thank the Board of School Directors and the Council Rock community for the opportunity to support this process. I want to congratulate you one more time. I also want to thank the many individuals that went into making a night like this happen. These things don't just happen, as you know. We've been planning this for some time. And so I want to thank and congratulate the teams from Council Rock School District and the Bucks County Intermediate Unit that made this event possible. There were kids here not that long ago, and the building is pristine. It's ready to go. It was flipped. It was transformed to be welcoming for us. Of course, we want to thank the folks in food service and maintenance and operations that made the building clean and fed us. Of course, we want to thank the teams that put the programs together. We want to thank the team that's recording and streaming this that allow us to be seen and heard. And of course, we want to thank the students and the teachers that provide such a phenomenal place for arts in education, and we saw that on display here, literally behind us, and then of course with the students. So we're going to turn it back over to you, sir, for some concluding remarks, and then to finish the evening after Dr. Sanko's concluding remarks, Mr. Salomon, the board president, will come up and wish everyone a great night. One more time, Dr. Andy Sanko, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Good job.
So, again, I want to thank our Board of School Directors and Dr. Hoffman and everyone who gave their time this evening. Hopefully you learned more about me tonight, particularly those folks, because I certainly do not know everybody in Council Rock. I hope my message tonight was clear to you that our focus is, our focus has been, our focus needs to be, without exception, students first always. Students first always. Council Rock is committed to kids. We are committed to our kids. They're our future, they're our legacy. You are entrusting us with your most prized possessions every day. It's an enormous responsibility. I hope that you were able to understand a little bit more about my leadership approach and take something away from the questions that the community asked. I'd like to thank the community folks who submitted questions. And I want to say that Council Rock has a proud past and a promising future. We have a proud past and a promising future, and again, it's because Council Rock, in our house, we take care of our kids. I've grown up professionally here in Council Rock. It started that day when we unpacked the building at Hillcrest, the auditorium at Hillcrest Elementary School, and it's never been a job, it's never been a career, it's been about helping. It's been about helping. And that's part of my core I learned at home. That's part of my core I learned under Mr. Cresswell at Hillcrest. And that's part of our core collectively at Council Rock. We're here to help each other. We're here to move kids forward. We're here to make sure our kids are successful. You heard me say this a few minutes ago with regard to one of the questions Dr. Hoffman asked. I'm going to say it again. I believe in this community. I believe in the Council Rock School Board. I believe in the staff of Council Rock. I believe in the people that work with our kids every day, but I believe mostly in each and every one of our students. Our kids are our kids. I believe in them. The last few years have been hard on everyone. They've been hard on parents. They've been hard on a community. They've particularly been hard on kids. I said this a few minutes ago too. We need to heal. We need to come together. We need to work together. We need to move the needle forward so that our kids are set up the best that they can be set up for their future. They're our legacy. They're our future. We have to do it together. Nobody understands outside of our world the breadth and depth of care and compassion that goes into each and every student in Council Rock. We need to make sure our kids know that. We need to make sure our students know that it's students first always. Our kids are introduced every day to a rigorous educational opportunity, K to 12 and sometimes K to 21. And we are fortunate as the people that are here to shepherd kids through these hallways in schools at this time. We're fortunate to be able to do that. It's a real honor for all of us. I know I speak on behalf of everybody here in Council Rock. I want to say to the community that the same level of care and compassion and tireless work that you've received from me for the last 33 years, you will continue to receive. I will be available, I will be accessible, and I will be visible. I know that I speak for the students, the staff, the board, that it has to be students first always. Passionately, deeply believe students first always. I again want to thank you for being here tonight. If anybody is able tomorrow, stop by the Star Building between 8:30 and 10. Our kids are going to have donuts and coffee for anybody that stops by. It would be great to spend some time with you. In closing, I want to just once again thank our kids. They're our reason. They're our North Star. They're the reason we're here. It's got to be, and it always has to remain, about the kids. Students first, always. Thank you.
Dr. Andy Sanko, ladies and gentlemen. The doctor part of it's still tough sometimes. It's Mr. Sanko to me, then moved to doctor, and now he's Andy, and he yells at you if you call him something else. So, thank you for coming out this evening. This was an important part of the process. For those of you who didn't really know Dr. Sanko, you will get to know him very quickly. I guarantee your kids have already seen him. Now they'll put a face with a name and realize he's the superintendent. I had the pleasure of sitting behind the Sanko family this evening, and tissues were wiping faces. Last week when Andy and I talked about the board was ready to make an announcement to the public, he said, "You got to hold off. I have to notify my family." So some time went by, and you know Dr. Sanko's relatively quick with a response. I said, "Is everything all right?" He said, "Yeah, I just can't get in touch with a couple people. I needed more time." I said, "Did you talk to your parents?" He said, "Of course." I said, "What was their reaction?" He said, "They cried." 33 years ago, that ride down from Lock Haven, Mr. and Mrs. Sanko delivered a child to the school district. Your child is now the next superintendent. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. Just do me a favor, figure out what the gas would be to do that all over again. He should pay for it on the way back. It is an absolute pleasure to represent the Board of Directors of Council Rock and be here tonight with the next superintendent. I thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it, from Ed to you, from the school directors to the staff, to everyone that touches kids. This is an important night to see your next superintendent. Go home, hug your children, and thank Dr. Sanko. He's the man. Thank you.